Just what is a Kadjar? Renault's people tell us that Kadjar is a cross between CAD for quad and JAR for agile, meant to give you the idea that this new SUV is both capable and sporty. But we think neither of those things are its most important attribute, and actually that's its size. You see, it's one of those strange SUVs that sits between what's traditionally considered a small SUV, like Mitsubishi's ASX, and a medium SUV, like Toyota's RAV4. And yes, it's based on Nissan's Qashqai, which I said in a previous review is probably the ideal SUV size for many of Australia's consumers. So, can the Kadjar replicate a little bit of that Qashqai success? Before we find out, remember to check the full review out on carsguide.com.au, and remember to hit those like and subscribe buttons to stay up to date with our latest videos.
While it might share its underpinnings with the Qashqai, the Kadjar is far from simply the same SUV with a few Renault badges glued about the place. The styling has been entirely overhauled, and so has its engine and drivetrain. This is particularly noticeable on the inside, where it's been entirely overhauled with some of the best bits and pieces from Renault's catalogue. It's a sportier, more design-focused look than the stoic and practical Qashqai, and has a boost in features too. This is rather important because the 3-variant Kadjar range wears a bit of a price premium over its Nissan cousin. Those 3 variants are the entry-spec Life, mid-spec Zen, and top-spec Intense. And while they might be a bit more expensive than a budget SUV, standard spec is pretty damn good. Even the base car gets some headline features like 17-inch alloys, front and rear parking sensors, interior ambient lighting, semi-digital dashboard, dual-zone climate control, auto wipers, auto lights, and a 7-inch multimedia touchscreen.
Inside, the Renault adds a lot more design over its Qashqai cousin. It's really elevated the space a lot with this slick dash across the top and surprisingly nice materials in here too. I really like the 7-inch touchscreen. I like the way that it's flush with the dash. It has all your connectivity. There's 2 USB ports easy to access in there. Although I do find it a little bit frustrating that there's no volume dial. You do get really good dials with little screens in them for the climate control, and that helps add to that cabin ambience as well. And so does this digital dashboard in here, which is something that not everything has at this price point. You can also change it. There's about 6 different modes, sporty ones, basic ones, eco ones. It's all really good looking.
Further up the range, you gain things like bigger wheels, push start and keyless entry, leather seats, the aforementioned sat-nav, a premium Bose audio system, LED headlights, edgier interior trims, and a sunroof. In terms of active safety, all Kadjars get city speed auto emergency braking, and the top 2 grades, the Zen and Intense, get blind spot monitoring and lane departure warning. There's no active cruise control across the range, nor is there a high-speed auto braking suite that supports pedestrian or cyclist detection. The Kadjar's size is one of its strongest suits, and that means the back seat has plenty of leg and headroom, as well as rear vents and USB ports.
Then there's the boot. At 408 litres, it's about on par for this segment straddling size. But what's important is it's actually quite big. It's bigger than a lot of mid-sizes that you'd usually expect. It's got a false floor here, and even though it's slightly smaller than its Qashqai cousin, on the top 2 grades, you do get these quick fold down seats, which are kind of neat. You just pull the lever and they go straight down.
In terms of rivals, you'll probably be cross-shopping against similarly sized and priced niche Euro alternatives, like the Peugeot 2008 and Skoda Karoq.
Engines. That's easy. The Kadjar has just one. It's a small capacity 4-cylinder turbo. It's a bit more of a complicated solution than its Qashqai cousin though, and that could divide some consumers.
It's also mated to a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic instead of the segment standard CVT or torque converter, and it has other fuel-saving features like stop and start. Its main competitors, the Karoq and 2008, have similar outputs and tech, separating them from Japanese alternatives. All of that high-tech engine stuff should make for a bit of a distinct drive experience, so let's hop behind the wheel and find out.
All right, what can I say about the Kadjar's drive experience? So up front here, the first thing you notice is the seating position is actually really good. It's really comfortable. You've got telescopic adjust for the steering, so you can adjust it pretty much any way you want. The stock seating position is quite high, but visibility is good out the front, and the mirrors, even though they're smaller than the Qashqai's, have a nice wide angle to them. One thing I'm not so sure about is the view out of the rear vision mirror. The design of the Kadjar has made it so that rear window is actually cropped in quite a lot, so it leads to a little bit of a blind spot when it comes to maneuvering around. The ride came as a bit of a surprise. It's really comfortable in here, and that doesn't matter which grade you pick. Even when you get to the top, the Intense, which has 19-inch wheels, it's still so quiet in the cabin and still a sort of soft and supple ride. It's a real comfort tune. It's really hard to discern between the models when it comes to the drive experience. They're really well specified. There's no difference in the engine, suspension, anything like that, transmission. Picking any grade, you'll roughly get the same experience. When it comes to the engine and transmission, I've heard mixed reports about this combination in some other vehicles, but here in the Kadjar it seems to be pretty good. It's responsive when you take off, and when you're on the go as well, the transmission's actually quite smart. It picks the right ratio, it's non-intrusive, and you can tell it's reasonably fuel efficient as well. Out on the open road, on twisty stuff and on the freeways, the limitations of this engine become apparent. So once you're up at a higher speed, there's less in reserve for overtaking, and it's a little bit weaker once it gets past that initial burst of torque. So it's maybe best suited to city commuters and not so much out here in the country. That having been said, the power on tap is sufficient. The steering is a bit of an odd one. I can't really pick it. It's really light, even lighter than that of the Qashqai's. So it makes for easy maneuvering around cities, it makes for easy maneuvering when you're parking or you're driving at low speeds. But up at higher speeds like we are now, it gets a bit wishy-washy and kind of loses the feeling to the front. There's very little feedback coming through the wheel, and it sort of gives you the impression that it's a bit numb, and it makes me lose my confidence in the corners. Renault's Kadjar is more than just a rebadged Qashqai. It justifies a little bit of extra spend with a lot more Euro style and connectivity as well. Still, one of its strongest attributes is its size, and that remains one of the things that will set it apart from the rest of its SUV competitors.